welcome everyone to our very special first event with pyOpenSci. I'm Francesca. I'm the Technical Community Manager of open source at Stanford. I know that this is, for many people in the audience, your first time engaging with open source at Stanford. So we're very excited to meet you and talk a little bit about who we are and what open source at Stanford actually is, and then dive into today's topic of improving research software through open and accessible peer review with pyOpenSci.
And I'll just chime in here. My name is Zach Chandler. I work with Francesca in the OSPO, open source at Stanford, and as part of the Center for Open and Reproducible Science here at Stanford. Um, and I am really thrilled to be working with Leah and pyOpenSci on this topic, because it occurred to me that what we're after here is um, well, there's a lot of centers of excellence at Stanford that are already doing all of these things. But for the most part, these practices, whether it's peer review or packaging or any of the best practices in open source software, um, they tend to be bounded by the lab. So there are particular labs across Stanford and other universities that are really excellent at this. But what we're trying to do is tap into a broader community and making it so that a larger group can learn from each other in a community of practice.
Yes, and we, as an open source projects office, are also really excited to learn from the group of experts at pyOpenSci. So a little bit about who we are at Open Source at Stanford. So Zach, as he mentioned, is our executive director, and I'm the technical community manager. We are led by Professor Russ Poldrak from psychology. He is our faculty director, and we are actually housed within the Stanford Data Science Center for Open and Reproducible Science. So even broader than just open source software. If you are involved in open science or are curious about open science practices, please also reach out to Zach. And he basically knows everyone on campus and can put you in touch with the right people and place your projects and your interests somewhere that I'm sure will be very exciting. Specifically, open source at Stanford is focused on supporting the development of open source software within the research ecosystem. So our audience probably fulfills the entire range of people who have worked as maintainers of open source software projects for maybe over a decade or decades at Stanford, to maybe this is your first time engaging with the open source software community. Maybe this is your opportunity to actually participate and contribute to some open source software or learn more about the other communities like pyOpenSci. So everyone in that range, everyone from beginner to maintainer for many decades and in between, you are welcome to engage with our office. Some of the things that we are currently doing, the first is a projects registry. So our open source at Stanford started a couple of years ago, and when we first started, we had around 25 projects that we knew of developing open source software for the research enterprise. We kept track of those projects on our website in what we call the projects registry that has since grown to, I think, just about 100 projects listed. So if there is a project you're working on or your lab is working on things open source and you're not listed, please reach out to us so that we can feature you. We also run a maintainers and contributors roundtable. This is a monthly meeting for maintainers actively developing software for their labs to talk about best practices and also talk about broader things in the open source space outside just their day-to-day jobs. We offer consultations. There is a consultation request form on our website. So if you have a question as a beginner and want to get involved but don't know which project, or if you are currently about to publish a paper and you want to get citation for your project, we can help you with that on an individual basis. Every year in the spring, we also award 2 prizes. One is on the project level for an open source project that is an exemplary project in open source best practices and in research and societal impact. And on an individual level, we recognize really stellar community members. And so if you are interested in joining our community and are an active and very engaging participant, we also recognize that contribution. And finally, and most excited about this one for today, we offer workshops. In the past, we've offered small scale workshops on software citation and are looking to do an internal Git tutorial. But today we're very excited to work with Leah at pyOpenSci, really focusing on just best practices for the scientific Python community and also engaging with the community outside of Stanford. pyOpenSci has this really wonderful community with just so many resources, so many packages also featured, including packages from Stanford. Leah runs tons of events outside of this one. And so we're just very excited to be working with pyOpenSci for our workshops. And please check us out at opensource.stanford.edu to learn more.
So today, our work is going to be governed by codes of conduct that are actually quite complementary. Everyone at Stanford is always governed by the Stanford Code of Conduct. That's the Admin Guide 1.1.1 that I'm sure you spend copious amounts of your spare time reading the Admin Guide. There's some good stuff in there, and you learn a bit about the culture of an organization by reviewing things like this. We also have welcome guests with us today that are not part of Stanford. By having both of these imbricated structures working together as they are complementary, everyone is covered. But when you boil it down, we want to create a welcoming, open, inclusive, and safe space for people to learn and to work. If we have high expectations of our colleagues, we think that that is going to be the norm. If it's ever not for you, let us know so that we can fix it. And with that, right, Creative Commons. So the CC BY license, so all of those icons that you saw on the previous slide, they're all licensed with Creative Commons. This is our attribution slide. And just a reminder that, we all use Creative Commons licensed content all the time, but we're actually not fulfilling the attribution part of the license unless you have something like this at the end of your slide deck. So please attribute to the creators.
Yeah, we try to model what we preach at our consultations.
And just last plug, the Noun Project is awesome. So if you haven't seen the Noun Project, go find them for your iconography.
Great. And before we hand over to Leah, I just wanted to point out two features of the webinar. If at all you have a question or comment to make, the chat, as it is for regular Zoom meetings, is available, but there is also this special Q&A feature. So if you have a direct question that you want to ask, feel free to put it in either the chat or Q&A, and Zach and I will be monitoring this. As we hand over now to Leah to talk about pyOpenSci.
Awesome. Thank you, Francesca. So let me share my screen here. Okay. Does everyone see my screen?
Yep. Looks good.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. So I am thrilled to be here, everyone. Thank you for taking time out on a Thursday morning in the summer when you could be maybe outside doing other things to be here today. I am going to talk to you about the work that we do at pyOpenSci to support research software. Before we get going, I want to just highlight that I'm using Mentimeter, and what that means is that you all can follow along with me today, and there'll be several times where I ask you questions and ask you to submit your answers through Mentimeter. So to log into Mentimeter, you might want to do it on a smartphone if you're on a computer, if you have the screen space to do so. You can either use this QR code and just take a picture of it, or you can go to this website, menti.com, and then type in this 8-digit number. And so I want to see that this works for all of you. So I'm going to also show you while you're trying to log in that Mentimeter has these little icons in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that allow you to interact with the presentation just a little bit. So if you like something that you hear, you could use the heart, or you could use the kind of like rock and roll. I always think that looks kind of like a cat, like the GitHub Octocat, or a thumbs up. And then there are questions here if you, oh, good. I see a couple people are logged in. Go emoji crazy right now. I want to see that you're logged in. Cool. Yeah, we got a lot of the cat, what I call the cat. And there is also a question dialogue here that you can use if you get to a slide and I'm talking and you have a question, because this is a Mentimeter. You can, on that slide, ask the question, and then we'll have breaks for questions as well. So if you're using the chat, that's cool. We'll also collect questions in the Mentimeter, and then feel free to use emojis as much as you'd like to kind of show me that you are engaging with the presentation. Yeah, I love it. Love the hearts, love like all the emojis. So keep that coming, and these will be on all of the slides. These icons will be there. And so my name is Leah Wasser, and I am the executive director and founder of pyOpenSci. pyOpenSci is a community of practice. We are academics, we're professionals, we are researchers, we are maintainers. We're open source enthusiasts, people that just want to learn more about open source, and some of us just love Python. And so we have a beginner to expert range of people in our community that contributes to the open source expertise there. So pyOpenSci is for everyone. If you are a researcher and you are writing code and you are interested in Python or want to learn more, pyOpenSci is a great community for you to consider getting involved in. So what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to start by talking about peer review and why we do it, and then how we do it and what the benefits of it are. I'm also going to talk about how our community of practice works to help you build better software, and how we build resources and how we really support peer review, all with this effort of helping researchers kind of file down some of those pain points associated with building better software and sharing their code. So here's our first question. I promised you there'd be questions. What I want you to do is tell me a little bit about your training background. Do you have training? Do you feel like you've had some formal training in software development? Maybe it's not enough. I already see two of you. It's not enough. Maybe you have no training. That was definitely me for most of my academic career. I kind of learned as I went, was forced to learn stuff. So I'm going to pause on this and just let you all think about it and answer this question. The reason why I'm asking this question is that I was just at the SciPy meeting, Scientific Python in Tacoma, Washington, and we held this wonderful community session. We had over 60 people there that were all interested in scientific Python. And one of the most common pain points that we heard from that group, we used Mentimeter as well there, was that we just aren't computer scientists, and we're being asked to develop software, and we don't have enough training and support to be able to actually do that. And so that was just an ongoing theme that we saw around this question. So I'm curious. Yeah, I see a thumbs up. Thank you for that. I'm just curious if this group is similar, and what I'm seeing is very similar to the numbers that we saw at SciPy. So this is a real challenge for researchers. Now, what's really interesting, if we think about go back to this slide, think about those numbers, that most people in this room don't have enough training or don't feel trained, not like educated enough to do this work, which means that it's very possible that there's some struggling going on It's been said, this is a 2021 article. I bet this number is higher, but it's been published that over 40% of researchers' time is on developing code and software. And I can tell you when I was doing my PhD, I have a PhD in ecology, I spent way more than 40% time of my time processing my data and writing code and writing software, and I had zero training. So I learned all of this on my own, and it was hard. So when we think about this, we have this problem. And this is a quote from 2006 from Greg Wilson. Greg Wilson, if you don't know him, he started software carpentry a very long time ago, which is now a very successful training initiative. And so he said, there's so many scientists spending so much of their time writing code, but very few of them have some training. And if we looked at the previous plot, I think a few of you in this space, and there's about 30 of us here, have formal training in software development. So this is an ongoing challenge. This is a 20-year-old quote that still holds true today. This is why this was really the inspiration for me to create pyOpenSci, was that I saw these struggles. I was at a university struggling to build software. And what I will never forget is that I got involved with the carpentries early on, and that community actually empowered me. I was using R at the time, and being in that community empowered me to create my first package in R. And I don't think I would be where I am today without that support system. And the Carpentries is a global community, as is pyOpenSci. And so pyOpenSci really understands this problem that research software drives modern science, but researchers are not getting the credit that they should be getting for developing software. We get credit for publications, which is great, but the work that goes into that publication should count too, because it's hard work, it's good work, and it makes our science more reusable. So there's value on all ends of what the work that we're doing that is not recognized in traditional academic environments. And I love the emojis. Thank you. I know y'all are following me, so emoji away. So the problems, we have this growing demand for reusable software and code. We're all doing it. We're all working on it. We don't have a pathway for training and support systems for building software. And I was thrilled when I started to hear about Sloan, who actually has funded pyOpenSci as well. We're funded by CZI and Sloan Foundation, or have been funded by those organizations. I was thrilled to hear about the open source program offices being developed because I thought, oh, this is a great way to try to start bringing attention to this challenge and this work that's being done that is not supported at the level that it really needs to be supported. So finally, the academic pathways. There really are no academic pathways for credit for open source. And the one exception to that is JOSS. And we all love JOSS. JOSS is the Journal of Open Source Software. I'll talk about how pyOpenSci partners with JOSS. But again, like, how are you supposed to develop great code and software if you don't have that support at your institution or in your lab? So time for another question. I want to understand what pain points you have when you're developing code and software. So take a moment to think about that and then respond to this Mentimeter. If you haven't yet gotten the Mentimeter up, you can go to menti.com and you can use the 8-digit number to log in, or you can use the QR code. And I want to emphasize that I will not, there's no personal information shared with your responses. So everything is anonymous. This is just feedback and things that we can think about and discuss together. So I want to understand the types of pain points that you experience developing code. That could be anything from dealing with dependencies, documentation. It could be any types of challenges that you have. I'm going to pause for a minute. Okay, here we go. No better practices. So this is going to create a word cloud. As you can see, Docker, imposter syndrome. These came up in the SciPy BoF as well. It's great. Oh, bugs. Oh, it looks like documentation is getting big. Stanford rules. I'm curious about that one. Making things reproducible. And also, if you see something you agree with, you can add that again because it'll make that bigger in the word cloud. If you're like, yeah, documentation is a problem, you can add it too. Um, and it will highlight it more. Maintenance. Maintenance is the ongoing, always a challenge. Lack of standards, changing dependencies. Yep, decentralized review. Cool. I'll give you like 20 seconds more if you have any last minute thoughts, but this is a great kind of picture of the things that see documentation actually several times in here. Okay, cool. I think we've settled. So thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. Oh, let's let you give you a few more seconds here. Oh, enough time. Yeah. So this is really, really similar to the types of feedback we got at the SciPy meeting. So as to say that you're not alone in the struggle, and a lot of people are dealing with the same or similar types of struggles, and they're dealing with it, as Zach mentioned, at different labs, at different institutions. And what would happen if we started to think about bringing you all together and working on some of these pain points together rather than having to figure them out individually? So moving on, a little bit more about pyOpenSci. Next, I'm going to really talk about peer review. We run open and accessible peer review of research software. So we help scientists with all elements of the open source kind of space, whether it's finding better software, whether it's creating better software, maintaining your software, or contributing to software. And so one of the things that we really think about is peer review as a model that academia values. So academia understands and values peer review software, but we think about it and reimagine peer review as a constructive process where you have editors, reviewers, and authors learning and growing together. The goal is not tearing things down. The goal is not making sure that everything is perfect. The goal is to have a constructive conversation about a package with the shared goal of improving its maintainability, its usability, and its discoverability. And so that's really core to how pyOpenSci works. And you might be wondering, well, like, what do checks look like for a package? And so when someone submits a package, I'll talk about the process in just a moment, but we have a set of basic checks that any package should have. So in other words, your package to go through those initial checks needs to be able to be installed, needs to be in scope for us, which the scope is really that it needs to have some sort of research application or focus. We need to have documentation on your package or for your package, and that includes things like README files and contributing files and codes of conduct and licenses. And you need to have tests set up. But really, there that we are defining the bare minimum things that a usable and reusable package should have. And you can look more. There's a lot of links throughout this presentation. Don't worry about losing them. I will share these slides after, so you'll have access to all the links and all the slides in this presentation. So this is what a review looks like. And I want to really emphasize this is one comment in a review. All of the reviews happen fully open, following open source workflows on GitHub. And this is a review from a few years ago that I really like to highlight because you can kind of see the tone that is happening in this review, how it's very supportive, it's constructive, and this is a communication between a maintainer and an editor-in-chief who's running those pre-review checks that I mentioned. And one of the goals in those pre-review checks is to help the author increase the maintainability of the package, make sure that it can be installed, those types of things. And you can see here, we're helping the author just modernize some of their infrastructure a little bit and also add some slightly more robust documentation. And in this case, this review, what was really cool about it is that we had a new reviewer on this review, and she had never reviewed reviewed before, but she was able to figure out or like identify some installation challenges on her machine that really improved the package. So I love this review because of the tone, the way that the package was improved, and also that we had a reviewer that wasn't sure if they were the right fit for the package that helped the author in a significant way by just testing it out and like looking at it from a usability standpoint. And so all elements of pyOpenSci's kind of ethos were represented in this review. But you can look at any of our reviews online and kind of get a feel for what they look like. Now, I just showed you some examples of the review, but let me tell you about the process. So you submit your package for review on GitHub, like I mentioned, and then the first thing that will happen are pre-review checks. So what you just saw in that previous screenshot was a pre-review check conversation happening between the maintainer and our editor-in-chief at the time. Once the package has gone through those checks, we know it's in scope for us. We've done like whatever improvements need to happen, have already happened. That package is in really good shape at that point. So if you get past the pre-review checks, which most people do if you're just engaged in their process, you're very likely at that point to be accepted, but you still have the review process with two reviewers and an editor that leads that review. All of the editorial team and reviewers are all volunteers. And that process happens again, fully open, fully on GitHub, which really moderates how people speak to each other because everything's there, everything is visible. Once a package has been accepted by pyOpenSci, you're part of our ecosystem. What that means is that you still own the package. You're still maintaining the package. You're still responsible for the package, but we're going to check in with you from time to time. We just make sure that packages in our ecosystem are still maintained. And we ask you to commit to maintaining it for at least 2 years. And if the package becomes unmaintained, that you just tell us and we will archive the package if needed. If it's a widely used package, we might think about, can we find a new maintainer for that package? Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our partnership with JOSS, the Journal of Open Source Software. So remember that JOSS is a publication, or is a journal, and JOSS's goal is really about academic credit for research software, about filling that gap in terms of research software being something that has value in academia. Obviously it has value, but it's not traditionally recognized for that value. And so through our review, JOSS will accept our review as theirs, and you'll be fast-tracked through JOSS once accepted by us. And all you will need to do at that point is write a very short paper, and that gets published by JOSS. And now you're accepted by pyOpenSci. You have the community of practice as a resource to help you as you maintain the package, and you have the publication through JOSS. Finally, we have a partnership with AstroPy. So if you happen to be in the Astro space, we have an affiliation partnership where you can also become affiliated with AstroPy. I see at least one of you likes AstroPy here or knows of AstroPy. Thank you for that. And so, yes, you can also become affiliated with AstroPy through our review process. And there are links to like how to submit and those types of things throughout this presentation. Now, I wanted to show you what a reviewer template looks like. So previously I showed you what the pre-review checks look like. This is just a little glimpse of, and you can look at the full review template if you go to our peer review guide, and this link on this page will take you to that guide. So I definitely suggest after this, when I share the PDF, you can click on all the links. But this is what the top of my peer review template looks like. So a reviewer will take this template, they will evaluate whether the package meets the various requirements. You'll note something that I keep meaning to change. Vignette is an R term. I came from the R world. We need to change that to short tutorials or quick start tutorials, but essentially having those basic elements of why is the package important? What does it do? Can someone install it? Are there quick start tutorials to help people get going with the package? Do you have documentation in your code base? So that's things like doc strings. So that describe what functions and classes and methods do. Those types of things are the types of things that our reviewers are going to look at. And in some cases, when you're going through the review itself, because this is open and it's open source, sometimes reviewers will open issues in the repo. We've had some cases too where we've had reviewers and editors that have actually opened pull requests on the repo as well to like help the author with things that they weren't exactly sure how to implement. So again, the takeaway here, I just said a lot about peer review, but the big takeaway I want to come back to is that this is about constructive communication with the goal of making better software as an outcome, with the goal of improving your package, and everyone learns during this process. And so know that this is not an expert-only process. This is a process where we welcome people with all levels of expertise to participate, to support, and to grow in that process. Now, take a little breather here and just talk about the benefits of peer review. Like, why would you want to think about submitting a package to pyOpenSci? There's a few different benefits. One, there is the visibility of your package. So coming back to that, mention that the note that Zach added earlier about people working on things within their labs, within these kind of small silos. And I remember this too. When I was in school, you're in a lab, you're so focused on your lab mates and like doing the work within that lab. And it's sometimes hard to kind of connect out to other groups that might be working on similar things. So by submitting to us, you get this additional visibility. We are a global community and we will promote your package. Now, you still own and maintain your package. So we don't have any ownership. We're really here as a support system. That is what we are. So you still have the maintenance and those types of tasks, but you're joining a community that can help you if you run into maintenance issues. And a good example of that is we just had a question the other day from someone that was doing, I think they were adding some typing to their package. And if you don't know what typing is, don't worry about that as a term. But the point of my story here is that they had some questions, they were stuck, and we had a bunch of people chime in and help them resolve what the issues were with the setup that they had for their package. And it was a pyOpenSci accepted package. So we are a support system and we have a lot of expertise in our community. And if you want to see some of the packages in our ecosystem, that's what this link is here. So what I really value is open source values when it comes to peer review. So traditional academic review is often done kind of behind closed doors. You don't know who the reviewer is. And there's some real value to that, to having anonymous reviewers that can really speak openly and not worry about any kind of implications if they are honest about suggesting some changes to a paper. But what I love about open source values is that it's kind of this mixture of we're creating a program that academia understands, which is peer review. But we're applying open source values, which means that everything's in the open, everything's on GitHub. The communication needs to be respectful, it needs to be mindful, and everyone's going to see it. And so maybe there are some downsides in terms of being fully open and honest about opinions, but the upsides are really valuable because, again, our shared goal is to improve the ecosystem. We don't need more pain points in the ecosystem. So the goal is everyone can see it. We follow open source values, and it's a supportive system. It's a supportive community. So I talked about pyOpenSci as we have this repository or catalog of packages. I think we're 47 or 48 at this point right now. And so you can discover software with pyOpenSci. So one of the outputs of peer review is this discovery piece where it just elevates visibility of your package. But I want to also talk about creating software because when we started and I asked that question about how many of you have had training, most of you said either you've had some training and it's not enough or you haven't had training. And this is very, very common. So if you haven't had training and I didn't have this training, how are you expected to do this work? So I want to take a few moments to talk about level of expertise associated with pyOpenSci's review process, and then some of the things that we're doing around packaging to make that process easier. So you don't have to be an expert to review software. I think that that is one of the biggest misconceptions. We have so many packaging experts in our community. And I'm saying that because that's important to have. It's important, like when I have a question and I don't understand something, to be able to ask someone else is highly valuable. But when you're reviewing software, we like to have a mixture of lenses. So someone that is an expert at Python packaging might not pick up on the fact that a package is really hard to get started using. Maybe the tutorials aren't there. Maybe there aren't any quick starts, or maybe the quick starts don't work. Maybe it's really hard to install the package because there's some dependency issues. And so we really like to have reviewers who are seasoned and who have more expertise, either in the scientific domain or in packaging, combined with reviewers that are newer to the space, that might want to learn and might want a little bit of support to participate and be a reviewer. But also, you can often really contribute in terms of, is this package easy for me to get started, or does it need more docs? Does it need more installation support? Those types of things. And then there are benefits to being a reviewer. There are real benefits in the same way that you might look at someone else's paper and you can learn how to write better by reading more, right? You can learn how to um, write a better paper. That's certainly how I learned to write better papers when I was in school, when I was doing research, by reading other papers. So you can also learn by seeing how different packages are documented, how they're put together, how their code is written. You can learn a lot about open source pain points. So one of the biggest pain points that I see in sprints is people getting started and not having enough documentation for someone to really jump in and start working on the tool, because there's not enough documentation to support it. That's a great thing for someone to highlight in a review. And then just the usability piece of, like, doesn't install on your machine. So there's lots of opportunities and benefits for people that want to get involved in peer review. And what you're looking at, this image on the screen, is during the sprint that we actually just held at SciPy. And you can just see we've got someone who's very experienced. This is Cam. He's actually a core dev in the science in the for Python, and works on a lot of other things, working with someone that was a newer contributor at our sprint in SciPy. So, ways to get involved in peer review. There are lots of ways to get involved. You can submit a package to us for review, so we always welcome that. You can become a reviewer with us. A great way to develop your skills, learning code by reviewing other people's code. Editors, we always need editors, and editors is a really great way to build leadership skills. The editor role is really more about leading people through the peer review process, keeping it moving, finding reviewers. So it's really a almost like a small management position. And I say small because you're likely only going to be doing one or two reviews at a time, but it's definitely a leadership position that you could grow and develop some management skills. And then check out our peer review guide if you're interested in learning more about the various roles associated with peer review. Cool. I see two questions. And it's perfect timing because we are at a question slide. And then Zach and Francesca, I'll answer, we'll talk about these. And then if there's a few more in the chat, we can answer those too. Okay. Are the reviewers domain specific? Oh, great question. So the reviewers, what we do for every review is we try to make sure that one of the two reviewers is in the domain of the package. So if it's like a physics package, we want someone with physics expertise. If it's more like biology, ecology, or climate, we'll try to get someone that has that domain experience. And then the second person might focus a little bit more on technical packaging, or maybe they're a newer reviewer that looks at usability and those types of things. So that's a great question. And if I answer your question and you have another question, just please add it to the Mentimeter, because we'll pause like this a few times. So let's see. So I'm going to mark this one as answered. And if I didn't answer it, just ask another question. Okay, next question. How much? Great question. So, how much is the expected workload for reviewers? We actually asked the question, how long did you spend reviewing this package every time someone submits a review? On average, the amount of time spent on a review will range depending on the person. We've had people say up to 12 hours. And recently we had the 12-hour one specifically popped out. It was actually a non-pure Python package. So there's a pretty significant amount of review there. And then sometimes it's just, and sometimes it can be down to like 3 to 4 hours. That is an average amount of time. I'd probably say on average, most people are spending somewhere between 3 to 6 hours on the review. Because you're looking at the package, you're installing it, you're writing some feedback. That's probably a good estimate for on average. And then some people might take it a little bit further, like that 12-hour one. I was very surprised by that, but also it was a pretty technical review. And the person reviewing was very interested in helping the maintainer. So that's a great question. I see someone like upvoted it too. So thank you for doing that. So I'm going to hit this one again. If I didn't answer it clearly, ask another question. Next one. Yeah. Okay. So can someone outside Stanford submit code for peer review and participate as a reviewer? Absolutely yes, is the answer to that. So this is a Stanford event. And so the idea is that we want to get your OSPO, involved with pyOpenSci. We want to connect with universities and not just Stanford, like around the country and around the world. So yes, you can submit your code for peer review if you are not at Stanford. Anyone can submit. Now, I want to emphasize that right now we do only review packages. So your code would need to be in a packaged format, and we could talk more about what that looks like as well. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that actually in the next section of like what is a package. But yes, anyone can submit. So I encourage you to. And if you have other questions about submitting, I am available and our community is available to answer them. Okay. Do you help submitted packages find new contributors? That is a good question. Do not do that right now. So that is a whole different, that is a area that, well, that is not in scope for peer review as a program, but I'm very interested in thinking about how we can help people like you developing code build out communities around your package. And I'm going to talk a little bit about contributing in just a bit. But the direct answer to this question is no, the peer review program does not directly help a package find new contributors, but we will have a lens for, is your repository contributor friendly? And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I see more questions coming up as I answer questions, which is awesome. So I'm going to go on to the next section. Your questions are still there. So I'm going to enter this one as answered. And then we will come back and we will have more space for more questions. So I'm not ignoring your questions. I want to keep going and then we'll come back and do another round in just a little bit. So keep asking questions in the Mentimeter as they come up, and we will get to all of the questions today, I promise. Okay, so let's do this too, so I don't see this. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is pyOpenSci's community of practice, because I just spent a lot of time talking about peer review and our peer review program. And I really hope that after today, some of you are interested in whether it's just joining our Slack or getting involved in peer review. We would love to have you. Or if you have questions about submitting a package, like all of those things, I am available. Our community is available. I hope you will consider joining us, and I'll have a Slack link at the end of this presentation as well. So what I wanted to really talk about next was the fact that we are more than just a group that runs peer review. We are a community of practice. And what that means is that we develop guidelines and best practices to help researchers with open source. And we do that together as a community. And so the next thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit more on the creating software side of things and some of the work that we've been doing there. So what does a Python package look like? And we have a lot of resources that will help you answer that question. And I'm going to show you a screenshot in just a moment. But first, I just wanted to highlight that we have an example repository that has a package. It doesn't have a full continuous integration suite set up yet, but it does have an example package that you can just look at if you want to just like see what a package looks like. And I'm going to show that in just a moment. We also have a template. It's a copier template that will get you from nothing to a functional package in just like under a minute. So you just answer some questions and it'll create a setup for you based on what type of structure you want. And the questions are things like, do you want documentation? What kind of license do you want to use? And if you don't want to answer those questions, we have a fast track like, yes, I want docs and GitHub, just build the package for me. And so it'll just actually create a package. And we've been teaching with this template, and it's been really, really productive to teach that way because then you don't need to create all the pieces of the package. It uses tools called Hatch and UV, and it's fast because we have UV, and it's very easy to work with because Hatch has a really lovely user interface. And if anyone has questions about tools, I'm not covering that today, but we will be doing a workshop, which I'll talk about on these topics in a few months, just for Stanford. So back to what a package looks like. This is a GitHub repository with our pyOS example package. It doesn't have everything in terms of it doesn't have linting and some of the other steps haven't been set up yet. We're going to do that, but it has all of the things that you need to be able to create a package with basic documentation, a basic test suite, and a working CI action that allows you to publish to PyPy using GitHub. Now, if you're interested in all of the elements of creating a package, we have a workshop for you that is available to all Stanford researchers. The date is October 9th. I'll talk about that a little bit more, and then Zach and Francesca will also talk about that. But it's a great way if you're interested in learning some of these skills, or even just like upskilling a little bit and understanding packaging more. I encourage you to think about coming to that workshop. So we have a lot of resources around packaging. We have a packaging template that I just mentioned. We have a full tutorial series on creating a package that uses the template, walks you through the publication, the PyPy pieces, and some of the other pieces. So you can go through that. It helps you understand how to store your metadata, all of the elements of pure Python packaging. It's not Python packaging that is more complex. It's just the basic Python package. We also have a whole guidebook that helps you understand just the parts of the ecosystem. There are so many Python packaging tools. I love the hearts. Thank you all. We have so many packaging tools. And so how do you decide? We have tables that help you understand the differences between the tools. And the thing I'm most excited about right now is incorporating UV. And if you don't know what UV is, I'll give you a very short description. It is a new package management tool. It is quickly overtaking pip. So I could see a future where people are using pip a lot less and everyone is using UV a lot more. It is so fast. It's written in Rust, and Hatch works with UV and has been using UV under the hood since it was created. And so it's really a lovely kind of mesh of the tool of the two tools. And I was really happy to teach with it at our last workshop, and it worked really well. We also have some contribute to open source lessons if you're interested in contributing to open source. And we have some lessons on the citation side of things and using Zenodo. So we have a lot of community developed resources that are free, open, available for you to use. Now, workshop October 2nd, put it on your calendar. It's, oh, I think I have the wrong time. I might have the time zone messed up there. I think that was mountain time.
No,
Francesca?
this is Pacific time.
Oh, it's Pacific. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
you got
I
it
just
right.
looked at it. I'm like, okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so it's Pacific time. I should have added the I always mess up time zones. So when I realize there's no Letters there. Okay, this is right. 9 a.m. to noon Pacific time, October 2nd. It's free for Stanford researchers to come. I encourage you to come. We're going to be using spatial chat. The way we teach is very interactive. So we will do little breakout groups. You'll be able to talk to our community members one-on-one in the online platform. So it's online, but you'll have tons of engagement. It'll be a lot like an in-person workshop. We'll just be using a tool that is an online tool that allows us to work together. So I encourage you all to come. This is part of our OSPO membership that we are working on, and I'm really excited about it. Normally, these workshops are a lot of fun. So, time for you to give us a little bit more feedback. So, if you're not logged into Mentimeter, please log in. Now, I see it looks like most of you are. I think there's about 25 of you here. And I have some questions for you. I'm curious, what are you interested in learning more about? Because we're doing a packaging workshop, but maybe there are other things that are more interesting to you. And so if you could take some time to answer these questions, the value of zero would be like, yeah, not interested in that. And no one takes that personally. And if you answer at the other side of the spectrum, that means you're very interested. So let us know. Cool. What topics are most interesting to you? And we're going to sit on this slide for just a little bit because I just want to understand where's most of the interest? And this would be like if we were to hold another workshop, what thing or things would you want to see in that?
And while we wait for
Yeah.
answers, Leah, I just want to give you a shout out. This is my first time using Mentimeter, and this sort of dynamic like updates on the screen, particularly the word cloud, but also seeing this as people rate their interests is super cool and also super informative for us as well.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
thank you for sort of sharing this presentation style. It's
Of
something that
course.
I think I'm going to steal.
Yeah, you should. I was the same way when I first saw this used, and I've used it consistently in like the BOF that we had at SciPy. I'm just letting you all answer the question this way. I'm talking.
Right.
The BOF that we had at SciPy, there's over 60 people in the room, and it's like, how do you allow everyone to have a voice in a room that size? And so I love that people can engage quietly, um, and we can kind of hear those voices too.
Mhm. Out of curiosity, I mean, you've only listed sort of six statements
Yeah.
here, but are these six just the most common ones you see, and that's why you listed them, or how did you sort of pick which six to have everyone rate
Yeah,
today?
I picked them based on the pain points. All the questions today, that's such a good question, are based on previous presentations. So
Got it.
the SciPy BOF, that training, not enough training, that came up really consistently. Um, the one I kind of wish we had here, I have the top one is I want to learn more about contributing. I suspect folks in this room, you can give me a heart if I'm like on point too on the slide. Y'all, is I think a bunch of you want to learn about how to build contributor communities around your package, like from a maintainer perspective.
Mhm.
I'm kind of getting that vibe, but yeah, it's from previous data, essentially.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we've got like 14 of you. Let's give you like a few more seconds if you want to answer this question, but there's some pretty clear, cool. Got a couple more people submitting. Get GitHub packaging, which is cool. But documentation is the one I wanna understand more about because I want to understand what the pain points are. So we'll circle back to that. Okay, great. So I'm going to move on. Thank you, everyone, for being so willing to engage with these questions. It's just really helpful as we think about what's most valuable for you as we work together. Okay, this is another question slide. So looks like if you have questions, you can drop them here. I know we're getting towards the end of the hour. This is when people start to get a little bit tired, and I get it. How about research supporting code? I write code that integrates with lab management systems. Um, I'm wondering if this was asked. I need a little more context. is the question about um, is that eligible for peer review, or is the question the context of this one? I'm gonna try to answer it based on we don't review code that is just like I wrote a script and I hear like you've got some system APIs, it does a lot of different things. Um, we would want to see a couple of different things if it were to be eligible for peer review. One, we want to make sure that it is packaged in a way that other people can install. And then the other is um, when you say lab management APIs, what is important for pyOpenSci is that there's some application outside of your lab. So if it's code that's very specific to like a single thing that you do in your work or that your lab does, that would not be something that would be in scope for pyOpenSci because it needs to have broader community value. That doesn't mean that your work doesn't have value. It just means that what like we do, it's not in scope for that. So one of the questions when you submit a package is what like asks you to explain why it's broadly valuable to the community. So we could help answer questions if you're just having some challenges around code, but if it's a very specific chunk of code that's focused on something that your lab does, and it doesn't have broader value, it wouldn't be in scope. And it also wouldn't be in scope if it's not packaged in a way that it could be installed from GitHub or from PyPy. So I hope that answers your question. Please ask another question if it doesn't. Okay, and I see some more questions coming in. Do you have advice or do peer reviews for projects on developing machine learning models for these projects tend to, yeah. Okay, so right now the answer to that on an organization level is no. But the other answer to that is that in our community, we have a lot of people in that ML AI space that are doing that type of work. So while pyOpenSci specifically as an organization doesn't do peer review, let me frame this correctly. pyOpenSci would review a package that has like ML associated with it. We definitely have stats oriented packages. But if you're looking for something that is not a package, then, or if you're creating something that is not a package, then our community would be available to support if you have questions, but we would not review it because it's not a package. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm going to hit enter here. Next one. Ah, great. Okay, so what events does pyOpenSci host outside of Stanford? So that is a great question. So the events we've hosted so far the events we've hosted so far, so we have a annual, we've been calling it a festival, an open science, open source festival where we have a lot of training. And the training that we offered last year during that was specific to packaging, but we also had a day on writing better, more robust code. And if you check out our lessons repository, which I have a link for, but not on this slide, obviously, pyopensci.org/lessons, you'll see some of those lessons. So we did one day that was all about publishing software. So that included talking about JOS and pyOpenSci's peer review process. That included teaching people how to use Zenodo for adding a citation to your package and then automating that. So every time you do a release, you get a new Zenodo DOI. So we went into that content. We have a video actually on that as well. We had, let's see, a day on clean code. And then that specific event also included a day on using Quarto for interactive kind of reproducible publication types of things with data that are data driven. And the other types of events that we love to hold, my favorite thing to hold are sprints. And so, what a sprint is for us, normally we have done it specifically for pyOpenSci content, and we will have lots of new contributors that will come combined with people that are very seasoned at contributing to open source. And the event is focused on helping people contribute to open source that haven't contributed before. And it's really fun. We've done them at multiple meetings. We normally go to PyCon US, we normally go to SciPy, and we're hoping in the future to do some online sprints and get some of the projects that pyOpenSci has involved in the sprints as well. So sprints is like one of my favorite things to do because they're normally fun. We normally have lots of people, and it's a great way to learn and support. So if you want to like keep in touch in terms of what we're doing and like ways you can just come to an event where we'll be, if you go to pyopensci.org/events, we always post our upcoming events there. It's a great question. So I hope to see maybe some of you there. Next question. How do you see AI? That's the big question. So Gen AI. So we're not talking about ML, we're talking about LLMs and AI, generative AI. And it is, in terms of it being a role in the review process right now, and this is a loaded question, but I'm going to give you my high level feedback on this and then tell you that if you're interested in this, we have a channel that is all about, it's called like ethics in AI, and we talk about AI a lot. The short answer is that we're seeing Gen AI. We're already seeing it in contributions. I've seen it in sprints where we get, submissions that maybe are very much LLM driven, and uh, they're not always contributions that can be easily merged. There are a lot of challenges that our community is spending a lot of time thinking about. If you're using Gen AI, generative AI, LLMs to create code, there are licensing implications. Where does that code come from? That code has been trained on data with a multitude of licenses. And can an open source package actually accept code generated from AI, knowing that it might actually or it likely actually conflicts in some way with the license you're using on that package? I don't have an answer for that. I can tell you that in some communities, they are not accepting AI as AI generated code as contributions. I can tell you that we've seen contributions in our community where I believe it was AI generated because it didn't actually reflect the code base. It reflected the issue that someone wanted to address, but it didn't actually address the issue correctly using the current code base. It looked like something that was just created by an LLM. I think, and I know I just talked to some folks from JOS yesterday, one of the leads at JOS, and he was talking about how JOS is having problems with their scope because now people can generate large amounts of code quickly. And so it has significant implications on peer review because is that in scope if someone can write 1,000 lines of code just because they can use an LLM to do that? It means that people can submit things more quickly. Like it has a profoundly huge role. And if you are interested in that role, I really would love you to join our community and join that AI channel because we've been talking a lot about how we should handle it at pyOpenSci and how it will impact um, decisions we make about package scope. So I see it impacting everything everywhere, and I'm very concerned about it actually, because if you think about the ethical considerations around how those models are developed, it's pretty significant, and I'm worried about new contributors and I'm worried about new developers. I will stop talking about this topic, but I just want you to know that we are having some really great constructive conversations, and I would love for some of you to be involved in those conversations if you're interested in it. Okay. Do most packages? That's a great question. The answer is about half. On average, some people don't care as much about the publication, and some people do. And also, some packages are not in scope for JOS. So we will review packages. So, for example, an API wrapper. We will review an API wrapper because that's part of an open science workflow is to get data. But JOS does not consider an API wrapper, so something wrapping around, some kind of like access data or something like that. It's just not in scope for them. The other thing that JOS looks at for packages is like the number of lines of code. And there's some other criteria that they have that we don't have. We really care about if your tool is useful for research, we want to review it. if it's a valuable tool that other people could use. JAS's intent is to make something publication criteria, is to accept something that is publication criteria. It's like research. So they need to see a very clear research application. So I think that those reasons are why some packages go on to JAS and some don't, and some people just don't need the publication. It's a great question. Next question. How do I get support from the community? Yeah. The best way to get support is just join us, join our Slack. And at the very last slide, I will have a link to join the Slack. I'll also just share it with Francesca and Zach. If anyone here wants to join, just join and ask questions there. And I'm happy to direct you once you get to the community. But that's a great question. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I think there's one more. I'm going to mark this one as answered. And oh, no, we're back to the answered ones. Great. Okay, so the last section, we're a little bit after noon right now. I'm going to noon, I'm in Mountain Time. You're in Pacific, so it's 11 for you. I have a little bit more and then we'll wrap up. And I really love all the questions. So please, keep them coming. Even if I can't answer everything today, I'm happy to follow up. So the last thing I want to just talk about is our resources. We think a lot about pain points in not only creating software, but also maintaining it over time. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we support that as well. I'm going to, let's pause on this. And I'm just curious how many here have created a package before? And it's okay if the answer is no. It's okay if the answer is I tried or I made one, but it was hard. Um, yeah, I'm curious how many of you have actually done this? Cool. What's really interesting to me with these types of questions is that oftentimes the I tried but struggled is a very common answer. And this is neat that we've got a lot of people that haven't done it before. So you might be very interested in our packaging workshop. And again, your answers are totally anonymous, so nothing is going to be connected to your name or your login or anything like that. This is really just data that helps us understand who's in the room. And as we think about the types of workshops and training, and maybe it's mentoring that might be most valuable to you all, we just want to understand um, what's most interesting to you. What do you need help with? Where are your pain points? Cool. All right, so I think things are slowing down here. So I think we've got a lot of no's. This is a different group than we had last time. I'm going to keep moving just to make sure that we have plenty of time at the end for any last questions. Um, and okay, let's do that. So the basic gist of this last section is this understanding that creating and sharing code is not easy. So for the person that's struggling with their ML project, and I don't mean struggle in a negative way, but just maybe spending more time trying to figure things out, to the person that is trying to package their code or just trying to understand how to share their code, none of this is easy stuff. And most of us are not trained to do it, which makes it even more challenging. And so pyOpenSci thinks a lot about the power of community and the power of connection. So I want you to imagine, and this really comes back to this idea that Zach brought up earlier on of researchers within their labs, researchers within a specific university. I want you to imagine being connected to other researchers across the country, across the globe that are doing the same types of work that you're doing. What if there's this ML question that we've had a few times. I bet there's other people that are struggling with some aspects of a machine learning project somewhere, right? And I want you to imagine what it would look like if we began to connect open source program offices across the country at different universities, researchers that maybe your research is different, but some of your technical pain points are actually the same. This is really how the carpentries got started. This is the fundamental core thing that our OpenSci, and this is our sister organization in the R space, thinks about, and it's what we think about. What would happen if you weren't struggling with software alone and you had people to ask questions, or you had other colleagues in other states and other countries that you could work with so you felt less alone day to day doing this work that is hard? We are a community of practice. And what that means, we do peer review, but what that means is that we bring people together from all over the place, all over the world to work together. This is a picture from a sprint that we held at the SciPy meeting just a couple weeks ago, like a month ago. And what I loved about this sprint event is you have people at lots of different levels of expertise in this picture. Some people had never contributed to an open source project before. Some people had a lot of experience and, in fact, were maintainers of open source projects. And you have people sitting together, working together, helping each other. You have experienced contributors, new contributors, experienced maintainers, new maintainers working together to contribute, to solve problems, and a lot of learning happened, which was really awesome. This is the heart and the spirit of pyOpenSci. This is what we do. This is why we exist. All of the stuff that we develop, all of the links that I've provided today have been a reflection of our community. And again, we are beginner to expert people here at pyOpenSci. And beginners are so valuable because if we create a packaging tutorial, sometimes people come to sprints and they like learn how to create a package, and then they also contribute by updating our packaging lessons because they find typos and issues, and we help them learn Git and GitHub. And it's a great way for a beginner to participate and to build their skills and contribute. But also, it's a great way that beginner is helping us improve our lessons and making them more accessible and more inclusive. So it's just this like lovely cycle of support that we have baked into our community. This is our packaging guide. This is the landing page. There's a whole tutorial suite of creating a Python package. There's pages that go over the various tools, how to publish to PyPy, how to publish to Conda. So there's a lot of technical information, but all of the tutorials are beginner friendly, and the content is also beginner friendly. And again, the tutorials, the next tutorial that we're doing is with you all at Stanford on October. And you can see some of our lessons and get a sense of the flavor of how we teach by going online and looking at our tutorials if you want to get started today or tomorrow. We run sprints. So to answer that question someone else asked, we love running sprints. And I know there have been some questions about like, how do you make a project beginner friendly? And it really starts with documentation. We could do a whole session on how do you make a repository contributor friendly? We spend a lot of time thinking about that. At pyOpenSci, we have a lot of infrastructure around our repos that make it easier for people to contribute. So that's another thing that we do. And let me just see one thing here. Yeah, this is the end. So this is the last slide. I'm going to do a connect with this slide, but I want to understand your pain points, and then we can just break for questions. And so we asked that one question where it was just, there were 6 things that we wanted to know if I asked you to rank which of 6 things you're most interested in learning more about. But here I want to just see what topics, like if we did training, what would you like to see for you? Like what topics are most interesting to you? And if people are feeling a little burnt out and are like, I can't type anymore, this has been a long presentation, we can also break. But I'm going to give this a moment. Here we go. Yeah. Maintainer workload, growing contributor community. It's a great one. Git. Okay, cool. And I get the end of the presentation fatigue too. I'll give this like another few seconds just to see if anyone else has any other things that they would like to see us think about. Yeah, finding that is hard, like figuring out where to get started. That can be really hard and take some time. But it's like a totally doable thing. It's just getting to understand how the communities work. It's definitely something we could talk about. Cool. Oh, we got a few more. Okay, +1 to engaging with contributors. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of contributor theme with this ASPO. Ah, yeah, convincing people, helping people understand that they can contribute is that's a big thing. There's a lot of imposter syndrome associated with open source, and I get it because I was impacted by that when I started too, for sure. Yeah, CI, CD, test-based package building. Cool. Anything else here? Mentorship. Yeah. Yeah, mentorship. I could see mentorship both when you're like creating a package, like in those early stages, being really impactful. That would have been helpful. I wish I had that when when I was in school for sure. Okay, cool. Well, I suspect we are at almost at time. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go to the next slide. I really appreciate this input and I really appreciate your attention for this much time. This is a long time to be online. There are some links here. The last link is a link to join Slack. I am going to copy this link and see if I can find the Zoom room here, but I will also share these slides so you can click on it. One second here. Okay, where is Zoom? I am going to stop sharing here. Um, I'm going to put this in the
There were some questions earlier about whether or not the chat was working. Oh, it's working for you.
Is it?
No, it's all
Yeah,
good.
Okay.
I think it's just in the direction of we can send
Got it.
things out,
Oh,
but it's all right because I think the questions on the Mentimeter worked out really well.
okay. Yeah, I can do, I think there was maybe one more. So I could either put like that's all my content I have for today. I'm going to share the slides. What is
Oh,
the best way to make sure we've answered all questions?
my mistake. I just saw on the uh, I can see that the chat is not visible to participants. So what I'm going to do is copy the link um, that
No.
Leah just sent and put that in the Q&A that I believe is visible to all panelists. I'm sorry, not panelists, to all participants. Is that
And just want to say thanks to Christina for pointing that out to us.
yes?
And we'll
Yeah,
make
thank
sure
you.
that this the slides get out to people.
Yes. We will make sure that there is follow-up after this.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there were any other questions uh, in the
Yeah, give me 1 second here to add. Let's do this. I'm going to add a slide here. Questions, Q&A. That's a good question. I'm going to share my screen again. We don't have to, well, you can record if you want, whatever you want to do. I'm going to share this. I'm going to present again.
I'm going to vote for stop the recording if we're going to have anybody else on camera or
Yeah,
if that's even possible with the webinar.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think this can just be questions. So I'll leave this slide up and you can ask more questions. This is a great one. How beginner friendly is pyOpenSci? So pyOpenSci is 1,000% beginner friendly. Our goal is to support people that are new to this space. And so there's lots of different ways that you can get involved if you're just interested in getting involved. Um, so ways that we often have contributors start in pyOpenSci, if you're just interested in the community, is if you're interested in contributing to the community, is looking at our lessons and like reading the content, and we'll help you submit pull requests if you find like bugs and typos as a way to kind of build your Git and GitHub skills. The other thing that we have a lot of is we have people that are newer to packaging or just starting to create one, and they have a lot of questions. And we have a coding help channel in pyOpenSci that you'll get answers to questions if you ask them. And what's really cool about it, again, is that we have this spectrum of beginner to advanced people in pyOpenSci. So we have core Python devs, and we even have like the hatch maintainers in pyOpenSci and people that like work on warehouse, which is PyPy. But we also have people that have never made a package before and they just want to like learn some skills and they have questions. And so it is very beginner friendly. So I would encourage you to join. There's a lot of channels and it can feel a little overwhelming, but the coding help channel is a great place to just ask questions. And if you're just looking for like connecting with people, we've got like a pets channel and we've got other channels that are not all technical. And then we also have conversations about AI and ethics and such. So I would just encourage you to join us. And if you have questions, there's lots of people that can answer them there. Okay, so I'm going to mark that one answered. Are there any more questions at this point? You can add them. Oh, no, we already answered this one. I
If I
don't,
may, I wouldn't mind jumping in on a earlier theme.
yeah, let's do
Um,
it.
People were asking questions about, how much of these things are, what's available outside Stanford and things like that. There's nothing particularly Stanford about any of this stuff. Like this is a open community that already exists. Your software developers can get started right now, and maybe they are already involved. We don't know, but part of why we wanted to do this partnership together is to put the OSPO kind of in the center of that conversation and to make it more likely for more people. So there's nothing stopping your researchers from joining in these conversations right now. We're just working on this partnership to make it a little bit easier and more likely of an outcome for Stanford folks. But we're part of a broader and a really wonderful community in the Curious Network. So we're going to be sharing all of our learnings on a meta level through Curious, but we're also hoping that some others might want to join us in the way that we're doing this as well.
Yeah, I love that, Zach. And kind of to like add to that just a little bit, you'll be at some point hearing from our OpenSci as well. And so what's really powerful about the work that our OpenSci, pyOpenSci, there's the Carpentries, there's all different a bunch of different open science flavored organizations in this space. And then there's those of us like Joss and our OpenSci and pyOpenSci are very focused on open source, which is why this OSPO partnership makes a lot of sense. And the idea is that, again, a lot of the answers and a lot of the questions and answers that happened today and the themes that we discussed today are common themes, and they're happening in labs within Stanford. They're happening across labs at Stanford. They're happening across universities. If we talk to people from other countries in research institutions, they're also dealing with AI and licensing issues with code and thinking about ethics and thinking about all of these things. And so, again, imagine what happens when we start to connect all of these communities through these central organizations like pyOpenSci and our OpenSci that are outward facing, that are looking across all the institutions, and that also have the connections with the people building the tech. The people building building UV. We're friends with the Pixie folks. We talk to the Hatch maintainer. Like we're talking and engaging with all of these folks. So it provides a lot of knowledge that can be shared. And that's what the community of practice is all about. And the membership is all about connecting.